आपने देखा क्वेश्चन पेपर?
जी मैम मैंने देखा।
Do you have a question or you are clear about the question paper?
जी मिस मेरा एक इससे रिलेटेड सवाल था। मिस जो मुझे एब्स्ट्रैक्ट मिला था, इट वाज particularly related to the politics surrounding America, and उसके ऊपर था mediated misogyny, and it was more related to misogyny presented generally over media. तो मिस उसके हिसाब से मुझे बिकॉज वो एक पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी से रिलेटेड था, तो मुझे एक कोई पाकिस्तानी मूवी स्पेसिफिकली उसके लिए ढूंढना मुश्किल हो रहा था। तो मैं ये सोच रही थी कि कैन आई चेंज माय एब्स्ट्रैक्ट और शुड आई स्टिल कीप ऑन सर्चिंग फॉर समथिंग लाइक दिस?
Are you talking about the midterm exam or the final exam or the assignment only?
Ma'am, the midterm.
Okay. Let's see what we have in midterm. It says women in media. And I'm seeing only 4 questions here. First one is on meiotic apatia. Second is on misogyny, phylogeny of women in a Pakistani drama or film. All it says that you pick a Pakistani drama that emphasize on misogyny or phylogeny. So misogyny is about hatred of women and phylogeny is about loving women. So I don't think it's too difficult to find a Pakistani drama. Perhaps, I'm not sure, but let's discuss, because today's reading focuses on working girls, right? Femme Fatale is about working girls or working women. You may have noticed the title of the book is Working Girls. And it does, and today's reading discusses how working girls become femme fatales or fatal women. So you can realize that it is in some way focusing on, you know, like hatred of women, or showing, or it is showing working women as bad women as opposed to good women who are domesticated and who are housewives in many cases. So today's reading actually shows working women as bad and housewives or non-working women as good in many places. Misogyny would appear in the form of perhaps honor killing, or perhaps objection to mobilization of women, or in many other forms, you know, where women are not allowed to express themselves or do what they want to do. So when we were reading all these abstracts on misogyny, we were seeing various forms of misogyny, right?
Yes, I have I do understand what you're trying to say, and thank you, because I was very confused about this. So I can generally write over misogyny. So I did find one scene. I don't know if you recall, but in 2019 there was this particular song that came out, part of this movie that was especially funded by the ISPR, and in that movie they showed an Indian woman doing an item song. So matlab ek tarah se ke it was basically presenting women not belonging to our Pakistani context, और वो in a misogynistic manner, कि वो इस तरह के evil या इस तरह के unfavorable काम करती हैं, and that's the justification that was offered for the items, for the inclusion of an item song in a Pakistani movie, and how uh, and the narrative presented to justify this song was कि अगर यही character कोई मुसलमान पाकिस्तानी लड़की होती तो कभी भी उसके ऊपर ना आइटम सॉन्ग बनाया जाता. So can I focus on this lens of how foreign women are shown in, or in a nationalistic context, in our media, or can I focus on that?
Yes, that is a good observation, and you can certainly add this item song in the discussion, and say that a foreigner is shown as a bad woman, or misogyny is created around the character of bad woman, or a non-Muslim woman. Because today's reading does include this kind of ideas as well, where foreigners or women of different races are used as bad characters.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah, so you can certainly do this. So if you look at it, I think I have been emphasizing in almost all of my classes, and even when we had orientation of this course, I did say that it would be very important to include discussions of scenes, or discussions of various factors in your examination, or in your papers or assignments. So this one, if you look at it, somebody was asking me last night how many words they are supposed to write for the paper for the midterm exam. It says right here, it says plus minus 1500 words. If you read A, it says use APA Times New Roman, font size 12, double space, plus minus 1500 words. So it's very important that you read instructions for the exam. Number of words is mentioned right at the top, right? Okay. Do people from psychology department use a different writing style than APA, or do your departments use the same writing style? What about DLA, students from DLA and students from psychology? Do you use APA as the writing style in your department?
Ma'am,
Yes, we use AP in psychology.
You use AP in psychology, so that's good. What about DLA? Do you use MLA? So if you use a different writing style in DLA department, I would accept a standard style, even if that is MLA, okay? So if you don't want to use APA, please use MLA. I'm saying this specifically to DLA students. So if you're not familiar with the writing style, it would be best if you use APA, but if you're not familiar with APA, you can use MLA as well, or Chicago. It says here that include a scene in discussion. Please do not write the summary of the film. I realize include the summary should be short. It should be written within 5 to 7 sentences, 5 to 7 lines, not sentences. So a short summary of the film would suffice. So write a short summary, but you can definitely write long description of scene and dialogues of scene. So discussion and dialogue can be long, but summary should be short, right? Please emphasize on personal, for example, use dialogues or statements of actors in discussion. Make sure that you are discussing it academically, and also adding your personal observations about the situations in the discussion, right? It says critically analyze the specific scene and the persuasion techniques that the direction uses in the film. By persuasion techniques, I mean if you feel that lighting is enhancing the impact of or meaning of a particular scene. So you can say that, for example, scene is fragmented. Mise-en-scène helps in creating certain kind of misogyny or certain kind of impression. So I'm just saying that keep in mind that how the production techniques, filming techniques, editing in particular, sound, diegetic or non-diegetic sound is helping develop certain kind of impression or meaning of the film. It also says use language and grammar. So when I say dialectic, when I say close-up, when I say film irony, expose quotation, I think, or close-up or long shot or different kind of words like transition from one shot to another. Do use this kind of language while writing your paper. If you're not familiar with any of these words that are mentioned here, and there would be many more words, for example, juxtaposition is another word, and I have used juxtaposition in many of my lectures. So I'm saying that use film language and grammar while writing your paper. It will help or it will improve the discussion of the scene if you're using the vocabulary. It also says clearly write your thesis statement within the body of the text because it will help me understand the structure of the paper. It will help me understand how you are writing your essay, and about your essay should have a spine. So you are clearly discussing one idea from beginning to the end. It's important that you focus on your thesis statement and your essay focuses on a particular idea, right? So make sure that these things are clearly visible. Whatever you say in your first paragraph or whatever is the thesis statement, you should conclude it before ending your paper. Please try providing both in-text citations and end references because if you do not provide these citations, your paper will look weak, right? So citations are very important. You cannot present others' ideas as yours. I'm specifically saying this to students from TFT, that make sure that you are providing in-text citations, right? Even if you have read something somewhere, you can quote the name of the author within the body of the text. It's important that you are giving names even if you are paraphrasing a quote, right? And upload it in Google Classroom maximum by Sunday night. Sunday night, which means the coming Sunday, and that would be 23rd of August. So it means that definitely upload it by Sunday night, because on Monday next week you are presenting your work. You are presenting at least one of your assignment or the midterm. So best would be to present your midterm to the class. Okay. Next week we have, though we have 3 classes, your last class, you may not need to attend the last session if the presentations are completed, because I will be marking your midterm assignment, midterm exam on one of these days. So we have maximum 5 to 6 classes left, and I'm saying one of these 6 classes, in one of these 6 sessions, I will be marking your midterm attendance. So you can actually be allowed to, like if presentations are completed, you won't have to attend the midterm class or the particular or that class in particular, but it's essential that we all students have presented by then. Please make sure that that nobody says that she is not ready or he is not ready to present, because it's important to present. you're getting at least 10% marks for the presentation. Sometimes I mark presentation for even 20%. And it's important that you do not miss the presentations because it will have a very strong impact on your final grades, right? So class participation is separate. Class participation is also marked for 10%. So it's important that you participate in discussions, and it's important you present your work. Here you are seeing 4 different questions. You have to attempt only one for the exam. It says Frantz Fanon on meiotic apacias, J. Sui Martinique. We were discussing problems within marriage of black and white people, but you have to answer question from your position. So you can, even if you are discussing J. Sui Martinique and problems of a black person's marriage with a white person, you can include how how you see marriage of a Balochi and a Punjabi, or an Urdu speaking and a Punjabi speaking, or a woman a woman who is Sindhi and is married to a Pathan in various cases. So when you look at the problem from your position, you can certainly add or compare meiotic apacias marriage from a Pakistani marriage between people with different kind of identities, right? Question 2 says misogyny, phylogeny of women in a Pakistani drama or film. I would say, for example, this play, Mere Paas Tum Ho, was very popular, and Ranjha Ranja Gardi is another play, and most of Pakistani's plays will be commenting on woman's voice or woman's position within the family, right, or community. So you would find a situation in perhaps every other play that you can certainly discuss. So, for example, Mere Paas Tum Ho focuses on a working woman who is not honest or who is not sincere with her husband. So this working woman loses her honor, or she is sexualized within the play as she leaves with her boss. She leaves her husband and she leaves her child. So you can see that working woman is presented as someone who deserts her husband and child for her own interests. So she is insincere. So you can see that you can discuss that her empowerment is shown through sexualization or by presenting her as bad woman, right? And that's a new type of stereotype. So independent working woman ends up having a new kind of stereotype in Pakistan. Those stereotypes of independent women emerged in America around 1970s, right? So working, or even earlier, because in 1940s, working woman became a stereotype, or a femme fatale, right? So femme fatale is a stereotype that emerged in 1940s in American films, and working or independent woman appeared as a stereotype in 1970s films. Question 3 says, sorry, let me finish question 2 first, because it says working girls. I hope you can see the question paper. So here is today's reading, and it very much relates to working girls. You may have noticed the title of this book is Working Girls. So if you are searching for quotations or things to quote in your paper, there are a number of papers in this particular book. For example, if you go to the content list, you would notice that every chapter is focusing on working girls, or misogyny and phylogeny, bad girls and working girls in the new Hollywood, cross-dressing, how dress is used for sexualizing women. Today's reading also discusses the same thing. Cowgirl tales, action women, muscles, mothers, and others, right? It says investigating women, work, criminality, and sexuality. So, working woman would be engaged in a crime, or she would be sexualized to show her bad. It says New Hollywood or film noir, and then it says female friendship, melodrama, romance, feminism. So there would be misogyny or some sort of phylogeny in all of these. Acting, funny, comedy, and authority. So you would probably find misogyny or how working women become part of this kind of narrative, right? So basically, there would be plenty of material on working women in this reading. Okay. Let's go back to the last question. It says, question 3 says, representations, stereotypes, and issues of honor in a Pakistani or foreign film. So here you have a lot of freedom. You can pick any film from anywhere. Please try making sure it does not say 2019 or 2020. Try picking up a recent film that was released in the past 2-3 years, and try not picking up a very old film when discussing stereotypes of women, right? So I think I will upload this paper again, making this little amendment here that you should pick up a new film, recent film from the last 2-3 years. Question 4 says, examine Pakistani films to critically discuss characters similar to the characters discussed in Patricia Hill Collins' essay, Mommies, Matriarchs, and Other Controlling Images. So question 3 and 4 are similar in many ways because question 3 is focusing on stereotypes and question 4 actually talks about these stereotypes. You know, mommy is a stereotype, matriarch is a stereotype, welfare woman is a stereotype, breeding mother or breeding woman is another stereotype, and Jezebel is another stereotype. And Pakistani plays and films also have tendency of calling good and bad women as mother or a prostitute, right? So these last 2 questions are focusing on stereotypes of women, and we have read chapters on more or less all of these topics. Working Girl we had not read before, so we are definitely discussing it today. So you can actually pick up any question from here. I would ask you to also look at final exam. It says 3,000 words. You can develop your midterm paper into your final exam. So if somebody is interested in picking a different question even for mid-exam, I would say there are more questions in the final exam. So if you are interested, you can pick a question for midterm even from here, though a midterm paper includes only 4 questions. The final exam includes 8 questions. So if you want to attempt a question from here for your midterm, I wouldn't mind that at all, right? I have created 2 different questions papers for the mid and final. You can pick a question from here for mid as well. Question number 1 says, aging, gender, and sexuality in Pakistani films. Most of the times people write papers on films and focus on protagonists who are young men and women. This question is giving you the freedom to look at old characters. You can pick old men in or aging people in Pakistani films. It's only suggesting that you do not look for young hero or heroine, or because young people are mostly beautiful and attractive, and aging means that the characters will get only supporting roles. There would be very few film or hardly any films that are showing old people as protagonists, right? So I'm saying that try looking at aging, gender, and sexuality in Pakistani films. Question 2 says representations of visual pleasure in a Pakistani film. So you can pick any Pakistani film and try seeing how women are presented or are becoming source of pleasure in that particular film. Question 3 says compare jattis in Pakistani films. So basically, this is asking you to look at characters of Punjabi women in Pakistani films. You can look for a jatti in an Urdu film, but you will more easily find in Punjabi films because I think Punjabi films do present them as jattis. But if somebody is emphasizing on her Jat identity and in an Urdu film or any other film, that is also fine. You can find jattis anywhere. It would be nice to see how different films are presenting jattis. Question 4 says, find a parallel between a Pakistani interracial marriage and meiotic capricious marriage. So you can see that this is the same question that you saw in midterm paper. It's only briefed a bit differently. It clearly says Pakistani interracial marriage and meiotic capricious interracial marriage, and you try comparing. This question is there in midterm exam, and I already said that you will, if you are attempting this question in the midterm exam, you are writing the paper from your position. It means that you will end up comparing interracial marriage from Pakistan to interracial marriage in France. This was a French interracial marriage. So it's important that you write papers from your position. Question 5 says, discuss the role of a fatal working woman in a 2019-2020 film. This is about today's reading. I said that you have to look for a working girl in a Pakistani film or drama, and while doing it, you can certainly use text from here. This is a paper on an American, or this is a paper on a number of American films, because it does discuss a lot of situations from a number of American films, and I said this is today's reading. So there won't be much problem discussing how American films are presenting working women. The title, I think, is Film Noir. How new film noir, and the femme fatale, because femme fatale is a stereotype of working women who are appearing in Hollywood films since 1940s. Okay. Question 6 here says misogyny, phylogeny of a woman in a film. So this is again the same question that was there in the midterm paper, and I have already explained what it is. Question 7 says, Sadaf Ahmed's article, use Sadaf Ahmed's article, Sexualized Objects and Embodiment of Honor Rape in Pakistani Films to discuss honor and rape issues in any Pakistani or Indian film. When you start writing and when you have written description of a particular scene that shows a situation like this, it will be easier to develop your paper around those scenes. So I'm suggesting that identify scenes in a particular play or in a particular film, because if you have identified scenes, it will help in developing a thesis statement about the situation within that scene or within that film. it will make it easier for you to write your paper. And the last one is again the same that was there in the midterm paper. So I think basically you have 8 questions for both your midterm and final exam. Even if the midterm is showing only 4 questions, I said you can pick a question from your final exam and attempt that question for your midterm if you like. Any question about the mid or final exam? Any question? People who joined late, if you have a question about the mid or final exam, you can ask now. Minahil, are you clear? Minahil, Ramin, Noor.
Yes, Miss, everything clear.
Are you clear that you can pick a question from the final question paper for midterm as well?
जी मिस मैंने सुन लिया था.
Okay, good. Good, okay. So I think then we should go to the reading. Okay, it says New Hollywood, New Film Noir and Femme Fatale. I had suggested that most of the times it's good to read whole chapter before the class, but I did assign at least 1 page to each one of you. So Amna Wahid is not here, so I'll try explaining the first page, and then I'll go to Amna Iqbal. I hope she has read the page 2. All right. So it says that film noir is actually about a specific trend in the American cinema of 1970s. And it's about specific style, tone, and narratives and mise-en-scène of the film noir. It means that technique was especially important in most of film noir films. Because film would use stylization that could be in any form. For example, the characters would wear highly stylized dresses. And by tone, it means that certain psychological meaning is created through tone or tonality, or, like these films create a strong psychological narrative by putting different shots together, which means editing becomes very important in terms of creating specific psychological meaning of the narrative of the film. And as I mentioned it before, that mise-en-scène is actually about everything that is there in a particular shot. It means you are talking about lighting, you are talking about characters who are present there, and blocking, which means that where a character like the walking space of particular characters, if they are moving in those particular scenes. So mise-en-scène is particularly used to enhance or to get particular meaning across to the viewers through the mise-en-scène of the film. So everything that you see within the frame is part of the mise-en-scène. Which would be like setting, the characters, the lighting, the props and wardrobe, and everything that is visible there would be part of the mise-en-scène. So 1970s films were actually highly stylized in many ways. So they were using this the film production technique for creating specific meanings. Okay, or for persuading the viewer to send across specific messages. This stylization was important because many films in the following years were actually trying to copy or to take it further. Okay. Uh, it says uh, it may look like, like you may be uncertain about the term, but film fatale is important in the sense that contextualization is important, and films focus on specific feminist perspectives and the figure of femme fatale, right? So these films actually emphasize on anxieties, anxieties, you can say social anxieties or masculine anxieties about characters of women who were appearing in these femme fatale films, or were appearing in films from 1940s onwards, and particularly in 1970s, because these films were highly stylized, or women or their dresses or their presentation was very stylized, right? For example, uh, I would mention a film that you may have seen. It's not a film noir kind of project, but you would understand what stylization means. For example, in Matrix, have all of you seen Matrix? The film Matrix, because you could see that characters were presented in a particular way, especially the protagonist. Dress of the protagonist and overall look of the protagonist was highly stylized. If we go to some of the films mentioned in this book, you would definitely understand what stylization means. Let me write Matrix here, and so you can see that these characters are presented in highly stylized fashion. Both male and female have particular, they are wearing particular type of dresses, and they are wearing particular type of glasses. So there is a lot of stylization which is very visible here. And though this is focusing on the male, but woman is also presented in a very stylized manner, right? So 70s noir films actually are highlighting stylization. Okay, so it just says that feminist perspective is important when analyzing the content of films from 1940s and 1970s, because these films reflect on anxieties around gender and sexuality. Okay, any comment on anxiety, on male anxiety? Because it also mentions the archetype. Archetype actually means that people may have internalized meaning of certain images within them. So these archetypes will be at work when these women are seen as femme fatales, right?
Miss, can you elaborate on the concept of sterilization again? मुझे समझ नहीं आया.
We will be discussing it further, but I said that if you look at, for example, these images of characters from Matrix, you can see that dress is very important, right? In this image, the dress of the character is very important. So stylization would be apparent in many forms, and the environment will become very important as well. So you would see that these characters are wearing dresses of a particular style, they are wearing particular glasses, and so they are very stylized characters within the film. And also by environment, I mean, for example, you would see blinds of a particular style in some of the film, and light will be passing through the blinds. So the film, different elements of the film are emphasized, like setting will be stylized. Uh, the spaces, which means blinds will be part of the architectural spaces, for instance, and which it only says that there would be a lot of emphasis in creating a certain style of
Yes.
production, right? So stylization would be very important for those particular films of 1970s.
Okay, so basically इसके जो भी आपने आपने जो सेटिंग यूज की है उसके हिसाब से आप सारे
आपने
ऑब्जेक्ट्स वगैरह सारे स्टिमुलस वगैरह सारे और ड्रेसिंग वगैरह उसके हिसाब से चेंज करो. सो इफ
राइट,
वी आर मेकिंग अ मूवी अबाउट 1960s या 70s तो आप सारी सेटिंग और लोगों के ड्रेसअप स्टाइल वगैरह उस टाइम पीरियड के हिसाब से एडजस्ट कर लोगे. दैट्स स्टरलाइजेशन.
no, yes and no, because you are talking about period, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
period film, the concept of period is different, because if you are showing, for example, 13th century environment or location in a film, that would be a period film, because you will try to show that people or spaces look like this in 1930s. There would be a different, strong difference between architecture uh, in different centuries. For example, in Romanesque, you will find windows were narrow and long or tall, right? Tall but narrow windows, because countries were attacking each other, so windows became narrow and tall. People could hide behind them uh, when enemy attacked. So that is called a period kind of film. And Gothic structures were very heavy, so which means that if you are trying to show Gothic era, you will show structures that are heavy, right? And then there would be Renaissance. That is a period that when art reached its uh, maximum greatness, and everything was just uh, brilliant, right? So we are not talking about period, we are talking about stylization. Stylization, that you are trying to create a particular, you are for example, stylizing the dress or wardrobe, or you are stylizing overall presentation of the character. So stylization is different. It can be done at any time, and it can be very modern, right? So I meant that 1970s films are highly stylized. Noir films and femme fatale films are highly stylized, because they will create a certain style of lighting or certain style of dress. So period is something else. Period is about giving the look of that particular period, and stylization is about stylizing everything, right? So this will become a mark of a particular director, and certain directors became authors, right? So you may have heard the word author for the directors, because these directors created their own styles, right? So authors are different, and stylization is about stylizing whatever content you are presenting. You stylize in a certain manner. Okay, so as, as we move on, you will find, because this has a little bit more on stylization, it is pointing to lighting of certain films as well. Ji, Ji,
Ma'am, I just wanted to ask you, the stylization जो है, it also creates nostalgia, which in a way is very hyper realistic. कि हमें लगता है कि वो stylization इतनी वो realistic होती है कि वो exist नहीं करती, but वो इतनी hyper real होती है कि it takes us back into the time. कि अगर जैसे 1970s का उन्होंने कुछ यूज किया हुआ है, तो we would be associated with it in such a way कि हमें लगेगा कि हम emotionally or connected हैं and we're physically there. So is it right?
Yes, sure. That is also right, because people may be, like interested in, for example, somebody may say, "KG, I like 70s styles," right? And somebody would say that maybe they like 1960s style as well. So nostalgia becomes very important, and this kind of stuff is, like film will be moving between past and present. So you are right about nostalgia, and the word is pastiche for that kind of thing. So in film language, we will say that it's a pastiche because it reminds you 70s environment, or it has a look that reminds you of the past, right? So in that sense, you would say that this particular film is a pastiche, or this drama is a pastiche. Okay. Okay, so on this page, it's only saying that we would be reminded of different archetypes, and archetypes would we have internalized those archetypes. For example, we think if people in society keep on saying that working women are independent, they are bad, they are wannabes, etc. So these are the archetypes that are produced over a period of time, and these different archetypes suggest an equation between female sexuality, death, and danger. We are talking about only femme fatale here, because femme fatale shows preoccupation with the archetype that working woman becomes a symbol of sexuality, death, and danger. And this symbol is very obvious in, for example, mere paas tum ho, right? So Mavish is a symbol of female sexuality, death and danger, because her husband actually dies in the end. She leaves. We don't see any crime in Mere Paas Tum Ho, like crime in the sense, because femme fatales are actually crime and action films that focus on female sexuality, death, and danger, right? So partly that example is right, and partly because it's not right, because we are not showing crime in that particular play. Okay. Okay, so you have to understand the woman's function within that narrative, or narrative of the film, or within drama, right? Uh, all right. So these he mentions, the author mentions
Sorry,
production
I'm sorry to cut you.
code. Ji?
Can you hear me? मैंने ये बोला था, you gave an example of मेरे पास तुम हो. I wanted to say that even when Humayun Sayyid died, a lot of people go up to Mavish and they say कि तुमने कत्ल किया उसको. Like you might have not done it physically, but mentally you did kill him. You are the reason he died. So they imply that overtly, like with dialogues.
Right. So death and danger is associated with that character.
Yeah.
Right? So all I meant that crime is not part of the play as such, because in most femme fatale films you will find crime. They are crime thrillers. Okay. But
Yeah, I get it.
you can see that Mavish is kind of stuck in similar situation. Here it is mentioning post-production code. It means that when these films started appearing in 1940s, there was a lot of problems. People were protesting about sexual content within Hollywood films. So, and there were protests on roads as well. If you try finding production code era, or era when Joseph Ibreen was in power, you would realize that people were on roads and protesting about sexual content in films, and these films were rated B grade films because of sexuality. And that's why you are saying that America was under the threat, that film industry was under the threat that if they do not control sexual content themselves, government would establish censor department. So film industry itself created Motion Picture Association of America, right? So I have mentioned it before, that the difference between MPA and Pakistan censor board is this, that our censor board belongs to the government, and in America, the film fraternity created Motion Picture Association itself because they wanted to be in charge of creative content. And if Motion Picture of Association of America does not approve the film, it will not be exhibited. It has the same role as Central Board of Film Censors Pakistan, right? So these were many post-product. You can understand that production code becomes very important when such films are produced. And we already mentioned authors. It's mentioned right here. I said these were directors who became very important for their films. And many times these directors were trying to get or use traditions from Europe. I have mentioned that European art cinema influenced creation of these films. And I did say that if through film festivals, film industry was actually accepting many techniques from the second world as well. For example, many of the editing techniques do come from Russia, and we did not go through editing techniques in this class, but you can write Eisenstein's name or Padovkin's name on YouTube, and you will immediately find what kind of editing techniques these people had created, and they are used in film even today, right? So this film noir style and femme fatale is showing an impact of European cinema traditions on Hollywood film industry. Okay. So film noir actually shows seductive females, right? And so you can say that if they are just thrillers or they are more than thrillers. Ji Amna Iqbal, are you ready to discuss this second page? Amna Iqbal.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you
Okay, so मेरा जो पेज है basically gives us the examples जो movies की हैं. उसमें जो है, first of all I'll be talking about how women are used in this genre, and how मतलब कि usually ये होता है कि like most of the times it's usually the sexuality of a woman which is discussed, and how उसको इतना sexualize किया होता है, but at the same time इसमें जो है they're not only sexualizing it but also giving a woman the space to express herself. और उसमें जो है मतलब कि उसमें दोनों चीज़ों को जो है ना हम वो cater कर रहे होते हैं. उसमें जो the speaking, the set. Can you hear me?
Gigi, we can all hear you. If you like, I can show this trailer. So your discussion would make more sense. I have picked up one film from that page. I think it mentioned Blade Runners and Double Indemnity. So I can play this the trailer. So it will help in discussing. You can see that these two dark characters, bodies are only, you're not looking at great details of human bodies in the image right now. You're seeing a lot of lighting that surrounds these bodies. So let's see how it develops. About stylization, because this is a very stylized kind of space. You see lighting is following in a certain style. You can see the style in the form, spaces, the lines, the architectural space, and then the image of this woman. I think there was a particular portrait here. Uh, yes, can you see that it has a certain style? So it's not a period film, but it does use. It's very stylized in terms of form, spaces, lighting, and everything. Uh, uh, Let me look for Double Indemnity as well. Double Indemnity trailer. This is from 1944.
The chilling masterpiece from the pen of James M. Cain, Double Indemnity. The finest come from Paramount Pictures.
जी जी आमना आमना जी आमना इकबाल जी. So focus is on murder and drama जी.
जी मैम. मैम जैसे कि ब्लेड रनर का जो ट्रेलर है उसमें वी आल्सो सॉ दैट द फिल्म वाज वेरी फ्यूचरिस्टिक बट had added the elements of visuals of 1940s noir. उसमें जो है they're using the uncertainty of masculine identities कि how it's also referring to post-war कि जिसमें जो है a man who is also dealing with his identity crisis with the help of this technique. और इसमें जो है yes ma'am.
जी जी, we are listening.
And the characters also anxieties and paranoia जिसमें जो जिस तरह का जो वो protagonist है उसके बारे में उन्होंने काफी फोकस किया हुआ है. और स्पेशली जो women है उसमें जो है they've also given her a space जिसमें they're talking about her existence. और उसमें जो है ओल्ड स्टोरीज है बट एट द सेम टाइम उसमें कॉस्ट्यूम्स इस तरह के हैं उसमें कि इट गिव्स अ वेरी न्यू डायमेंशन टू द फिल्म. और जो क्या कहते हैं
Okay.
इसमें ये the other film उसमें जो है I forgot the name. उसमें भी जो है the conversation shows the destruction of his apartment and the visual devices around him are associated with noir. So there's that. And
all right. So okay, good. That's good because it's only saying, and as we have noticed in particularly this trailer from Body Heat. Did we look at Body Heat? Right. So it just says that these films had art house quality, right? So you may have noticed that the clip that we saw first was actually showing very artistic and stylized images. So in that sense, it has the art house quality. So basically, the filmmaker was actually trying to give the art house quality to the content that he was producing. It also says that the film is conveying the anxiety and paranoia of a cultural moment, because when these femme fatale films became very important and working women were emerging in cinema after the World War. So World War era is also very important. So it says that The film actually conveys the anxiety and paranoia of a particular women when women had become working and they were considered dangerous. And that was a particular moment in terms of anxiety, male anxiety, right? So it says that these images actually enhance uncertainty of masculine identity, because if women become so powerful and dangerous, anxiety of the male characters will definitely increase. Okay, so these films had stylized quality associated with the noir style. And then she is giving examples of other films. For example, The Postman Always Rings Twice. I think, as one of you mentioned earlier, nostalgia was very important in these films, because you can say that these films are the mark of the postmodern. So noir films are also considered postmodern because they are presenting women as powerful, and the figure of woman becomes dangerous. So femme fatale is not only postmodern stereotype of woman, and they are presented in a particular style. So what you said is absolutely right, and they are saying that the film as a shifting figure film is also moving between past and present. So these films actually show particular plots that are postmodern, and postmodern femme fatale is highly stylized and fatal. Thank you, Amna. Ji. Who is next? Ji, who is next? Okay, so Ariba. Ji, Ariba, did we allocate next page to you? Ariba, can you hear me? Ji. All right, Ariba, can you hear me? Would you like to discuss what is mentioned here? Okay, if I believe she is present. If you haven't read this page, it's fine. I can try explaining. But everyone, please understand that this page is pointing to the pastiche. It appears right here. And I said that pastiche is something that is reflecting on the past and is also showing present situations as well, right? So here you would see that Leni Riefenstahl's name is mentioned, right? So it just says that some examples that show women in dangerous roles are, for example, Star Wars also represents women who are dangerous and fatal. And 1930s, this Leni Riefenstahl is very famous for producing Triumph of the Will. So Leni Riefenstahl was from Germany, was making this kind of films as well. And this film is very famous, because they're just mentioning pastiche scenes in adventure serials of 1930s. So Leni Riefenstahl's this film, though, is not about a femme fatale, but her technique is mentioned here, that the techniques of filming were definitely used in many of femme fatale films, and some of the techniques were borrowed from Leni Riefenstahl from 1930s. Leni Riefenstahl is the lady who was director of the film for Hitler, and Hitler was producer of Triumph of the Will. So it is just emphasizing on, like problems of contemporary America or post-World War America. And I have mentioned a few times that as men were at war, women had become in charge of the homes, and they were in many cases known as head of the family because they were responsible for the home. So aesthetic, it just says that some of these films uh, actually present the problems of contemporary America or erasure of history. So these films actually also point to when they are referring to certain nostalgic moments, and when they are rewriting those moments or reinterpreting those moments, they end up actually erasing history of a particular past. So, for understanding in detail what erasure of history means, I think we'll have to actually go to some of these films. So it is just the comment. It is just a comment of the authors that film is often used also to erase history. Okay, because when they don't focus on present and keep moving between past and present, some new narrative or some new meaning is created through re-articulation of past images. Okay, so 1970s noir films or femme fatale films focus more on corruption, capitalism, and incest. There is a very popular film scene. I think you may have heard the dialogue. She is my sister, she is my daughter. Have you heard that dialogue before? Have you heard that dialogue? Because the author is saying that 70s femme fatale films were focusing on sexual harassment or incest in many cases. Chinatown. She's my sister, she's my daughter. If I can find the clip, I'll try showing you the clip.
I found these in your backyard in the pond. They belonged to your husband, didn't they? Didn't they?
I don't know. Yes, probably.
Yes, positively. It's where he was drowned.
What?
There's no time to be shocked by the truth. The coroner's report proves that he had salt water in his lungs when he was killed. Just take my word for it, all right? Now, I want to know how it happened, and I want to know why, and I want to know before Escobar gets here, because I don't want to lose my license.
I don't know what you are talking about. This is the craziest, the most insane thing.
Stop it! I'm going to make it easy for you. You were jealous. You had a fight. He fell. He hit his head. It was an accident. But his girl is a witness, so you had to shut her up. You don't have the guts to harm her, but you got the money to keep her mouth shut. Yes or no?
No!
Who is she? And don't give me that crap about your sister, because you don't have a sister.
I'll tell you the truth.
Good. What's her name?
Catherine.
Catherine who?
She's my daughter.
I said I want the truth.
She's my sister. She's my daughter. My sister, my daughter.
I said I want the truth.
She's my sister and my daughter. Come on, please, go back. For God's sake, keep her upstairs. Go back.
Gee. All right, so you may see that these films, this was a very powerful scene from Chinatown, and this film actually points to corruption, capitalism, and incest. So you can see that 70s noir films, and the director's name is Polanski, very famous, very famous director from Hollywood. So the film actually focused on corruption, capitalism, and incest. Uh, okay, so feminist film criticism was also appearing around 1970s. I think we have discussed a few different readings from 1970s. For example, um, Visual Pleasure by Laura Mulvey. She had originally written this article in 1977, and many other articles and theories that we come across were actually feminism criticism was actually developing during 1970s. So you can see that when these films were released in 1970s, feminist theories were also developing around the same era. So women actually started talking about these female authors or researchers started talking about these images and how women were presented in films like Chinatown, etc. So this lady that you just saw, besides Jack Nicholson, you can see that she is presented as a tool for as a tool that focuses on corruption, capitalism, and incest. And I think the dialogues were clearly showing that she has a daughter who is also her sister. Okay, so the identification, classification, and cataloging of stereotypes is changing. So femme fatale is definitely appearing as a new stereotype in this in these films from this era, right? So many directors were fascinated with this new form of showing women in this type of film, and as I mentioned, that stylization is also increasing around the era. Who is next after Ariba? Hassan. Hassan, are you present? Let me save attendance before 11. Hassan, are you ready to discuss the next page? Anyone else who I haven't marked present and is present now? Should I save the attendance as it is? Okay, I'm saving. And I think in a few minutes I will save attendance of the next slot as well. Hassan, do you want to discuss the next page? He is not here. Okay, so this page only says that most films are produced from a masculine perspective, right? So she says that Noah films or femme fatale films are also produced from a masculine perspective. In Chinatown, which is the scene that we just saw, we can see that this scene is shot from masculine perspective. So these feminist writers say that these films actually show existential dilemma of the Noah hero. In this case, the hero was Jack Nicholson. So he's trying to explore a connection between woman as described desirable and dangerous. So in the latter part of the film Chinatown, we see a relationship developing between the two characters, the characters that we just saw in this scene, right? So the characters do develop a relationship, but at the same time, this is a very powerful woman, though she says that she will tell him the truth, right? And while he is she's telling him the truth, he is constantly hitting her right in face or slapping her in the face because he does not believe that she is telling the truth. Okay, so as the film develops, you can see that the male protagonist is interested in the woman who is apparently desirable but dangerous, right? So noir films are focusing on desirable women, dangerous women, and this film also had the characteristic of showing incest in the narrative as well. Okay, you should also know that besides this feminism, the wave of feminism that was appearing in 1970s actually paralleled women's movement in 1970s, and in 1970s women's were criticizing a lot both in America and British culture, British societies. And as I mentioned before, that these are post-war films. So the film is actually the pastiche, as it moving between past and present. Even in 1970s, it is talking about ideological negotiations and redefinition of female characters, because World War had impact on women's mobility and women's power as head of the family and as working women, right? So women's roles actually were changing. So redefinition or renegotiation with women's role in society was important. Okay, in the sense that the archetype was changing and women's image was changing as they were becoming more and more powerful in society. So historical moment actually reflects on World War II and its aftermath. And performance of power is very important in such femme fatale roles, because women as negative characters or fatal stereotypes are emerging to show their power within their character. Okay, so these films are quite regressive in the sense that women are not shown to follow their normative roles, or they are denying their roles in society as such, the roles that are expected of good women in most cases. So you can see that these femme fatale roles they serve as, the film narrative serves serves the negative or regressive ideological function. You would notice contradiction between narrative style and visual style. Okay, so narrative and visual are very important, and films are regressive because women deny to perform the roles of good women or domesticated women. These femme fatales are seductive and evil simultaneously, and they are defined by sexuality and power, right? So transgressive figures misleads the hero, and this woman is actually punished for all the pains. And as we noticed in Chinatown, in the scene that we watched from Chinatown, that her punishment has begun as Jack Nicholson is hitting her for lying to him. Okay, he believes she's lying to him, though as a matter of fact she is not lying, but her punishment has started because of her sexuality and because of the power that she holds, right? The character in Chinatown scene had a life and vigor which is absent from the life of normal women or common women. So naturally these femme fatales are very different from common women, so they needed to be punished. Here she has mentioned 4 characteristics of femme fatales. Number 1, you will always find that seductive sexuality of femme fatales is highlighted. Number 2, these femme fatales are shown as powerful women. They are very strong. They are strong over men. So these are the reasons they have to be punished within the narrative of the film for seductive sexuality and for being more powerful than men. Uh, a reason for creating anxiety for the male characters within the film. Number three, these characters are full of deceptions. So Jack Nicholson thinks that the lady is deceiving. Or she is disguising her. He's asking her questions about her identity, and a lot of confusion surrounds the character, right? So she appears ambiguous to the hero, who is Jack Nicholson, and she ambiguous to the audience or the viewer as well. So, in other words, she appears as deception. There is a lot of deception around her, disguising and confusion around her, and the confusion surrounds her character all the time. You will always find a lot of ambiguity about femme fatales or females in femme fatale films, because it's difficult to understand them. And it was very clear that Jack Nicholson believes that there is a lot of confusion about this character. Uh, so this is the third characteristic. And number four, the woman is presented as enigma, right? Enigma means again the same thing, that there is a lot of confusion around her, and the hero needs to find the truth. And for finding truth, Jack Nicholson is actually investigating her and asking her questions. So these four elements become very important when understanding femme fatale characters. And I hope you all understand that these four focus on sexuality, on power, on deception, and enigma created by the female character, right? So this woman, through all four characteristics, appears very threatening to heterosexual male hero, right? Her transgressive refusal to patriarchy uh, again appears very threatening to the male hero. So it's important for the male hero to investigate her and to punish her for having these four characteristics. G, any comment on what we have discussed, or any comment on how the femme fatale appears in terms of four characteristics? Any character you think you can uh, any character from this part of the world that you think would be similar to femme fatale in Chinatown? No? What about Bali Jetty that we discussed in one of our earlier classes? Do you think that Bali Jetty is a character that would appear as fatal as this woman in Chinatown? Ji Nimra?
Miss, I wanted to ask about the female characters who are shown as vengeful for something that they have been wronged for in a lot of Pakistani movies. तो उनको usually इस तरह से दिखाया जाता है कि वो काफी inhumane है, या फिर they've lost their feminine side, resulting in them wanting revenge for something. So could that be also related to femme fatale in some ways?
Yes, definitely. Whenever a woman appears as somebody very powerful, very enigmatic, and if ambiguity surrounds her, and I believe the character that you have mentioned would appear ambiguous, and investigation would be needed to find the truth around that character. So when you find all these four elements there, you are definitely talking about a specific femme fatale. So I'm sure that you are right about the character that you have. You said that vengeful or vengeance actually reflects on a powerful woman. It shows a woman uh, who should be punished. So male character within the film will actually follow her to punish her for having all these characteristics.
Miss, there are some Bollywood movies and a few Pakistani movies that have this sort of context. I don't know, however, if the movie Mom can be related to this, and there's another one, Kahani, in which Vidya Balan plays this role where she's being hunted down by a man, something like this, for fighting for justice.
Okay. Kahani, is that the film where Vidya Balan is a babysitter and she or a maid in some house and she takes away the girl and she's hunted down uh, and she uh, I think the film ends at a suicide blast or some sort of thing.
I miss it's the one in which she pretends that she's pregnant to get revenge or to bring her husband to justice, and then eventually it results in her being hunted down because usse kisi crime ke liye phir karne like something around this like line of narrative.
Okay, so is it this one, Kahani 2? Um, this is actually showing Vidya Balan.
Miss, it was it might be this, but it was Kahani probably यही थी शायद.
Okay. I would assume that you are right because I can see a few different things here. I'm not sure which one it might be. Perhaps this one. Let's
My husband is missing.
आपका नाम?
Vidya Bagchi.
विद्या बागची.
नहीं, Vidya. V, not a B.
मैंने कलकत्ता में विद्या सब है, सेम फीलिंग. आपका हस्बैंड्स नेम?
Arnab.
बागची.
आपका हस्बैंड मेरे कंपनी में नहीं आया.
इधर आ.
मेरे साथ साथ ही रहते हैं. अर्नब बागची का नाम को भी नहीं सुना.
अर्नब बागची नहीं था.
प्लीज मदद कर दीजिए. प्लीज हेल्प मी. मुझसे रोज वो यहीं से बात करते थे. क्या सर लगा रखा है? मुझसे बात कीजिए ना.
Okay, I think I might have watched this movie, but I think it was probably a long time back. I can't recall the whole story, but I think that I kind of perhaps remember a bit of it. She becomes very dangerous because she tries to investigate herself and find her husband herself, and she perhaps starts taking revenge for everyone in the end. So I assume that was the story of this film, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you are absolutely right that she comes perhaps as a simple woman, but then she starts taking charge of everything, and from very beginning she's shouting at the police officer कि क्या सर लगा रखा है, मुझसे बात करें. So she appears as strong and powerful, and if in the rest of the film The investigation is around her character, you know, that if there is a police officer trying to find truth behind murders or behind deaths, yes, Vidya Balan is definitely a femme fatale in this film. If all these conditions apply, she's a femme fatale in the film.
Miss, this brings me to another question कि obviously जो जितने sexually explicit manner में West में femme fatale दिखाया जाता है, we can't have the same way, but usually with like I've noticed in Indian and Pakistani films अगर किसी भी character को बहुत strong बनाना होता है तो they relate it to goddesses. And specifically the goddess Kali for some reason. There was another recent the Netflix movie Bulbul uske andar bhi kiya tha, and a few other movies recently came out. So this is particular to South Asia कि they do bring in religion in some reason to
They did this
justify
in
the
another Bollywood film I watched as well. This just reminded me of that. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
There was this Bollywood film called Hamari Haduri Kahani, and in the end, when Vidya Balan is the actress in that as well, in the end, when she's about to kill the guy or when she's threatening him and finally taking over him throughout, like after dealing and enduring all the abuse that he put on her, like when she finally stands up for herself, like piche wo jo unki Kali Ma ka music hota hai, that starts playing, and she's portrayed as the Kali Ma.
This happens in a lot of movies. I can't recall the name, but एक आध और इस तरह की थी.
All right. So does goddess have all the four characteristics mentioned here? Seductive sexuality, power and strength. So
I think yes, because that's like they express it उस तरह से कि she's somehow owning all of it now.
Okay. So I think that if it is connected to religion, that's another important element.
Ma'am, ये मेरे पेज में है.
आपके पेज में है, किस पेज में?
It's the next page. I want to discuss it, so I don't want to discuss it right now. It's the end of my page, so like it comes to that.
But it's okay, even if it is if at the end of the page you can discuss it before.
मैम आपकी आवाज कट रही है.
I said you can discuss it now if it is relevant to the discussion, and we can discuss the other parts later.
अच्छा वो मेरा flow खराब हो जाता है. Okay, fine. I can discuss it now.
Right. But in that case, if you do not want to mention it now, even then you can see that images of good and bad women become important. So I think you can discuss what is mentioned on this page now.
Okay, can I start?
Yes, sure, you can start.
Okay, ma'am. So my reading starts from making us understand that there's a lot of implicit sexuality shown, but not explicit. What they do is they rely on implicit sexuality to portray the femme fatale, वो क्या करते हैं कि they make the women go wear like tight costumes, or like their postures depicted in a way that is very sexual. For example, I wanted to show a clip of this interview, which is only 30 seconds. It's Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson plays Black Widow in a super film called The Avengers, or उसमें सारे male superheroes, and she's the only female lead. And her entire, like her costume that she wears is skin tight and it's leather. And all the questions that she's asked in the interview are always about her body, whereas all the other co-stars are asked about what was your role and how did you prepare for your role and what was your character like. But for her, it's always her body and her sexuality. So there's interview clip where she calls him out.
I have, sorry to interrupt you, I have given you the rights to share the clip. You can share the clip if you want to share the clip.
मैम आपकी आवाज कट रही है.
I said you can share the clip. You can share. I have closed my screen so you can share yours.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. Hold up, let me
You
find.
will see. You can see this green tab.
Oh
That's
yeah, I found
yeah.
it. I
Yes.
found it. Okay. Um. Okay, I'm sharing it. Okay, so this clip right here. So it starts from right here. Can you guys see?
Yes, we can.
Now, were you able to wear undergarments?
You're the fifth person that's asking.
Well, no, because
What is going on? Since when did people start asking each other about in interviews about their underwear?
No, because it is such a skin tight.
I'll leave it up to your imagination.
Oh, see?
Okay?
Is that...
Whatever you feel like I should be wearing or not wearing under that costume.
This is not a...
Is what I...
Well, is it inappropriate?
To ask somebody what kind of underpants they wear?
I didn't ask you what kind.
You just asked me if I was wearing any.
Yeah, so that was, can I stop sharing?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, so this was the interview, and this kind of, and there are many other, like this entire clip is about the little interviews that they asked her, all due to the fact that she's part of the Avengers series, and they always ask her these questions. This takes back me to the reading, which says that these directors or writers, they focus on the implicit sexuality of a female character. Now that is basically favoring to men because it is for their pleasure. What they do is they and then this quote of Mary Ann Duane, she says that this kind of takes away the power from the female, because this is not really subject to her conscious will. Like it blurs out the difference between passivity and activity, which basically means that she is a strong figure in the film, but she is still not the main figure. Like she is not someone who the power derives from. She's literally just a carrier of the power. Like she is, in other words, she's just eye candy, basically, in a film. Now, in the name of feminism, they're actually just portraying her as eye candy. Now, then the reading goes on and gives examples of The Last Seduction and The Bond. Both of the films, unki storyline thodi si similar hai. The Last Seduction, the main female is portrayed as a villainous character who convinces her husband to sell cocaine and steal the profit, and then steals the profit and runs out. And then eventually the next place that she goes to, she finds another man and she convinces him to murder her husband. So basically she's playing this villainous, just like that angry goddess type that has this some insane power over men and kind of manipulates them in a way to get what she wants done. And she is shown as a person who's very emotionally distant. Like usually women are bullied or women are always abused for being very emotional. मतलब मर्दों का आगे से point ही हम पे ये होता है कि dude अब रोने ना लग पड़ना, या don't cry or don't make this emotional. We are basically blamed for that all the time. But what they do is they take a 180 degree and they make her a numb person. Like she feels no emotion whatsoever. Basically what they're basically making her into a male. जैसे कोई जेम्स बॉन्ड की मूवी और जेम्स बॉन्ड में वैसे if you guys have seen James Bond, like he's never expressive. We don't see him using his emotions over his responsibility or his work or his motive. So they've turned the same character but into a female, and that is so weird for people, and they'll make her a villainous character instead of making her a superhero or like anti-hero. This shows that writers or directors can't have like a balance. It's either like they can only show a woman who's very submissive and emotionally vulnerable, like the Dollhouse mein, the main female lead is in a dollhouse, or it's the other way around, like Bridget in The Last Seduction. This shows you, okay, like they are either numb or super emotionally involved. Now then the reading goes on and talks about how the 1970s there was an emergence of like the new popular type, the independent woman. Now this was in terms of like the profession or like career or like how they act, how they're literally refusing to any typical stereotypes of a submissive woman, and they're taking charge just like a man would in a business field or in like a profession. She gives an example of a lot of newer films in which this female independent character was used. But then she goes on to say that these place this critique, this person criticizes, saying, Jenny Place says that all these characters are like this, and I quote, she says, dark lady, the spider woman, the evil seductress who tempts men and brings about their destruction. Now, she compares this, like what you guys were talking about, she compares this to um, ancient folk tales and mythologies. So she says this is as old as religion gets, and this is as old as Eve, because it all started from that, how Eve Eve was the reason this whole thing started, and Eve was evil, and it's always the girl who is that particular figure who ruins everything. और पाकिस्तान में भी हम लोगों के बहुत कोर्ट्स हैं जिसमें होता है कि एक औरत ही फसाद का जड़ होती है. There's a famous quote, or like another one would be एक औरत ही दूसरी औरत का घर बर्बाद करती है. Like we have internalized the fact that if a woman is doing what she wants to do, if she's an independent woman, she's seen as a villainous character, or someone who is not accepted by anyone in the society or by men. Now this goes back to like biblical or like contemporary references, or वो यही बोलती है कि it's as old as Eve but as current as today's movies, comic books or novels. Like comic books की example मैं दे चुकी हूँ. Poison Ivy is another example. Harley Quinn is another example. Like using these characters just to favor the men, and making them in a way that is catering to men's insecurities and fears. Now, these historical beliefs make you like realize the length of this type. Matlab it's creating narratives that focus on destroying powerful women, because their sole purpose is to destroy the men that destroying the men that take away the power from women. But what this does is this takes away from the whole idea of feminism, or the idea of why femme fatale exists. Like what it does is it creates a popular culture of creating narratives just to cater to male fears. जैसे कि अभी last में place की quote है मेरे page के end में, that it is only, what it does is only caters to males' fears. That, like, because these women are sexually aggressive and they can destroy them. So usse pehle they destroy you, you have to destroy them. So this is taking away from the women's movement, and this is taking away from the women's fight for equality, because it just eradicates her power and just focuses on the fact that she's evil. Just because she's powerful, she's evil. She can't be powerful without evil.
Okay, beautiful. I think it was very well presented, because these aggressive women, it says that destroy these powerful aggressive women who are also using their sexuality to replace men in many ways. Right, very well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. So who is next? Is Kanza present? I think she's not present.
No, ma'am, I am.
Oh, you are. So Kanza, would you like to discuss what is mentioned here on the next page? Any question about what Ikra just discussed, or anything that you would like to add to what Ikra discussed, and then I think Kanza would discuss this one. Okay, okay, Kanza, please start. Ji.
Ma'am, before I start, I want to show a clip so I can, I guess, refer to it while I'm talking about it.
You can share the clip.
Okay.
So I will stop sharing, and you can share. You can make it full screen when you share. Okay. And please also select audio on your computer. So I hope. Could everyone hear when Ikra was playing the clip?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, please start, Kanza.
Oh, okay. So basically, just by the way, this movie is discussed in that segment of
which I was assigned. So I wanted to show this. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
You can make it full screen if you like.
Yeah, so basically in my segment, she talks about this character Rachel and how she fulfills the role of femme fatale in this movie, and through visual representation and the lightning and overall her getup. So I want everyone to notice that. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Your voice is a bit low, but we can hear you.
Okay. So basically, the author is like questioning and discussing about the fact that she's actually not really interested in discussing about how the 1940s film is received in the 1970s, but she's talking about the new holiday movement, which was a Hollywood movement, which was basically a movement where new independent filmmakers were, I guess, experimenting with old themes, and she wants to focus on how these themes, especially the femme fatale theme, was reintroduced. And so like ma'am, you previously mentioned about the qualities of what a femme fatale female is, like her seductive nature or her power over men because of this quality, and how like she deceives, and how it's like very ambiguous and mysterious sort of for the main character, the hero, and the audience as well. So she's asking questions regarding the role of women in the new film noir, and how like in the 1940s and 70s femme fatale is related. And she basically asks about so what was she was asking? Wait, let me check. Okay, yeah, so she basically is questioning that is there a particular reason that these new filmmakers were using this archetype, or was there a historical sort of specific reason, or was it is this powerful female sexuality in direct relation to the need of representation consciousness of feminism in the 1970s? And so she basically discusses that there's actually no single meaning or way the 1940s strong woman image was invoked, and she uses Blade Runner and Rachel's character to basically discuss this visual style in the film basically to talk about how an ambiguous character is presented. So like I mentioned while showing the clip, that it's very like a futuristic sort of city, and the female lead like fulfills the role of femme fatale, like her getup, her makeup, like the red lips, her outfit is very formal, and she's very calm, and she's analyzing and confident, and she's always like in a distance from the main character. And if you saw in the very beginning like how the lightning was working, she was basically like half of her body was shown and half wasn't, so just creating the mysterious element. And basically she also discusses about how like slowly when this character develops, she actually changes into this sort of a muse, which is called it was called pre-Raphaelite. And basically I looked it up, and it's basically the sort of woman who has a very melancholic sort of expression, and she's very pale, and I wouldn't say fragile, but it's like more feminine, I guess. And I couldn't find the clip exactly, but yeah, I think this was what was discussed. There was another movie discussed, Saint, but I
All right, so let's go back to the page. And on the page it says sculpted hairstyle, right? So Shaw Young, I believe that she had this sculpted hairstyle as well, even in this scene. We did not notice her with the cigarette. She's not smoking cigarette in this particular scene, but in many of Femme Fatale films, you will find powerful women who actually use all elements of beauty and masculinization at the same time. For example, if woman is wearing red lipstick or her lips are painted red, and she has a sculpted hairstyle or a beautiful hairstyle, and at the same time she's smoking a cigarette, you can see that women are using all elements of she's using both type of elements, not which are not only feminine but also masculine at the same time, which probably yields more power, because these women use not only power of sexuality but also power of masculinity if they are smoking cigarettes or other things. So they are appearing as sophisticated but at the same time self-confident heroines. So these women need to be destroyed. Did you say that it was difficult to understand their identity? Because we could see that when this character, Shaw Young, asked him, "Did you miss me? Do you love me?" And she touches her face. You know, this is this looks like a subject kind of touch. You know, she's touching him as a subject, and he's holding her hand and trying to feel her hand, perhaps once for the last time. I think the scene probably communicated a bit of uncertainty about male identity, because the woman looked very powerful, but within the scene, he says, "As we agreed," and the other character shoots this woman. So we did see that she is destroyed in this scene. She appears sophisticated, she appears powerful, and she is using power of sexuality, because she's asking him, "Did you miss me? Do you love me?" Uh, and he decides to destroy her, and he says, "As we agreed," and she's shot then and there. So all it says that male identity looks uncertain, and female identity appears very powerful and strong, and woman is using the power of sexuality, and she's masculinized at the same time. So she has become more dangerous. All it says that women appear as enigmatic, they appear puzzling, and the hero is trying to figure her out. And the moment that we just noticed, I think by this point, Harrison Ford had figured out that she is dangerous and she should be murdered. So that's why he says, "As we decided." Here it is saying these women appear distantiated, so they are not in full control of the male protagonist within the film. So as male protagonist does not control her uh, like people control common women, and these women are different from common women, so we can say that she appears distantiated, she appears ambiguous and potentially threatening figure, and that's the reason Harrison Ford decides that she be destroyed. Okay, so it is saying that failure of identity only implies that women good women are normally considered are the women who stay at home. Their domestication is important, and if women are not behaving the way they should behave, that is what she's calling failure of identity. I believe Yvonne Tasker is writing this article because the book has a name. Perhaps individual names do not appear on most of these articles. So I would use Yvonne Tasker's name to discuss what we are reading here. And it's the failure of female identity at this point. If Femme Fatale is not doing what women should be doing, it is the failure of woman's identity. And it also reflects a lot of uncertainty for the male, So women are trying to reinvent themselves through such roles within these films. I think in the earlier clip of the film Kahani from India, or Vidya Balan's role in Kahani, we also see that Vidya Balan reinvents herself as a character within the film. On the page that Ikra was reading earlier, there was a comment that Femme Fatale fail the criteria of good women because good women show nurturing ability. Vidya Balan was actually reflecting nurturing ability because she is pregnant within the film, right? When she lands at the when her plane lands at the Indian airport and she comes out, we see that she's pregnant. When she's talking to police officers, she's pregnant. She's running through the city looking for her husband, and she is pregnant all the while. So we do see that perhaps she was a good woman at the start of the film and had nurturing abilities, but as she becomes a femme fatale, so this film actually shows deviation from the usual femme fatale role of the past, because in the past femme fatale were not shown as women who had nurturing abilities like good women. So we can also notice that Vidya Balan's role actually showed nurturing abilities despite being a femme fatale. So there is a change in the trend of femme fatale over a period of time. Okay. We can perhaps say that in this last scene from Blade Runners, Harrison Ford probably was showing an identity that was falling apart, and he recovers his masculinity or identity by deciding that the woman should be died, because normally, as we read in Laura Mulvey's Visual Pleasure, that symbolic structure basically says that women internalize their absence, the absence of phallus, which means that men are present because they have the body organ that makes them men, and women internalize absence of the particular body organ, so the male child feels the mother is castrated. Femme fatale makes a man feel he is being castrated. So he wants to recover from this fear of castration that this femme fatale actually presents to the male protagonist within the film. So we can say that the femme fatale appears as a castrating woman. So this is another reason that she should be destroyed. Who is next? Komal is not present. Komal is not present today. So I think we'll just continue discussing what is happening here. It says that femme fatale appear as castrating women, and old style, here Yvonne Tasker has mentioned a film from 1994. The title is Trial by Jury, right? So we can see that all these films are showing how the style of presenting femme fatales or information about these characters who are known as femme fatales is changing over a period of time. So femme fatale were dangerous women of 1940s. In 1970s, there was a lot of stylization about femme fatale characters. Let's see how the femme fatale changed in 1994. It says that in 1994 film Trial by Jury, Joanne Valley Kilmer plays Valerie, a single mother running a small business who is called for jury duty and find herself pressurized. So this woman, the hero appears as the old style movie gangster, and he fancies women like Valerie who represent a specific class, and that's the class of the past. And she runs a business, and in that particular business she sells dresses from the past. So basically when she appears for jury, she's always dressed in that particular style. And the hero, who considers himself an old style movie gangster, find this women quite fascinating, right? So Valerie is a single mother, businesswoman, and good citizen, right? But when she has to appear for jury, she is conceived as a bad woman, and she is in period clothing. She is wearing period clothes, and the male protagonist is attracted to this woman, right? Okay. Valerie visits Pyrone dressed to suit his fantasy, right? So every time she appears, he starts thinking about her. But she carries an ice pack in her handbag, and she actually kills him. So basically, somebody who appeared very like a good citizen eventually kills Pyrone, who is investigating the case when she appears in the jury. So basically, again, what was said earlier, that independent woman became a stereotype in 1970s. So Valerie actually puts forth this image of dangerous independent woman who killed the male within this film. Okay, so what it proves is that she is evil, and she's dangerous for the male, dangerous for the male and masculinity. It just says that another film, Devil in a Blue Dress, again, this dress is emphasized in the title of the film. So we can see that style is emphasized in a particular manner. And again, many of these films are reflecting on post-World War period, so they are pastiche in certain style. When it says the film makes references to the past through visual elements and through costume and setting, it just means that costume and setting are used to remind elements of the past. Okay. All right, so explicit portrayal of sexuality and or violence of some kind is very important to the production of femme fatale films in all these years, right from Chinatown of 1970s, I believe, and to all these films that have been produced. I said earlier, these films were originally rated as B movies because of sexualization and because of so many protests against the content of the films. So these films created myths about female characters, which means that myths were around that women are devil, women are temptresses, they are harmful to heterosexual love, which is important for maintaining the family. Okay, so as they were not following the norms, uh, the women were dangerous, and films were also rated B. Is Kulsum present or Kulsum not present? I think Kulsum is not present either. So I will just go through this page and then we go to the next one. So it says that women were presented, femme fatales were presented as dangerous women. They are not good for heterosexual for heterosexual relationships, or heterosexual lovemaking is not important in their cases, because they try to dominate all their situations, right? So so these films actually were marketed as through an association with explicit sex, transgressive sexuality, or emphasis on taboo topics, right? So if taboo is emphasized, you can see that they will be rated as B films anyway. But on this page, they have mentioned the titles of some Oscar-winning films. So these are not the films which were rated as B anymore. Okay, you can see that I believe that Basic Instinct was one such film, and Fatal Attraction is also a very famous film from 1987. And these films heavily emphasized on adulterous sexuality or adulterous sexual abilities of women, right? These apart from that, Yvonne Tasker is asking if femme fatale characters also appeared in single-sex relationships or lesbian relationships. So in 1996, for the first time, we find like femme fatale in this film Bound, that actually presents butch female lesbian couple, right? So and Madonna starred in a 1933 film Body of Evidence, and these films, because Madonna was performing in the role of femme fatale, you would say that such a popular artist, and her performance actually became the taboo breaker, right? For example, we are talking about Pakistani television plays from Hum and ARY digital channels that are taking up certain issues of sexuality or sexual harassment. These plays focus on issues that Pakistani films did not like discussing, Pakistani families did not like discussing with their children. We avoid discussing sex and sexuality issues with children, but these plays have included content on sexual harassment. So we can say that these plays have become taboo breakers, right? So similarly, it is saying that because Madonna starred in Body of Evidence 1933, it became a taboo breaker because an artist like Madonna actually took this thing to the popular culture through her performance. Madonna also made this video, Express Yourself. And if you have seen Madonna's song, I think I mentioned it in one of my classes and probably showed a bit of the clip as well. In Express Yourself, she performs her on stage, and she performs in a manner that she is sexualizing herself on stage. And this performance was there around the world, right? She took it to all the places. So that's way if she is bringing brothel in her personal performance on stage, it will no longer remain a taboo, because Madonna is a very famous artist of these past years, and her performance became a taboo breaker in many cases. So it says that in 1990s you find femme fatale films with butch femme lesbian couples, right? So and at the same time, which means that femme fatale films were no longer emphasizing just on heterosexual relationship, right? So we find bisexual couples, and we also find homosexual couples in these films from 1990s or late 1980s, right? In Basic Instinct actually ends at if you look for ending of Basic Instinct on YouTube, you would find that femme fatale falls in love with the male protagonist, which means she becomes weak if she, like her role is no longer of a femme fatale, because she falls in love with the male protagonist. So her role definitely changed towards the end of the film. I wonder if okay, so this was not the right clip, but in the last scene of Basic Instinct, we find that the couple is lying on bed, so by the time he tries to rescue this person, I think this fatal woman has already murdered him. Right? So in the last scene, you find the male protagonist and femme fatale on bed, and the camera moves down to show a dagger lying underneath the bed. So basically, the film ends leaving the question if femme fatale is still dangerous, or now that she's in love with the male protagonist, she has reduced her role to a domesticated woman's role any further. So I think you can see that it's a film that exploits both the success of success of the protagonist or the femme fatale, or and it says that another film, Disclosure, it says that femme fatale, we see it heavily relies on explicit treatment of adulterous sex, and when the male protagonists run, we can see that in the lift and kitchen we are watching two different murders by the fatal woman. right? So in this case, we're just saying that the films actually market sex is powerful, but while the actual content of the film is not just on this treatment that sex is powerful, treatment is focusing on some kind of investigation, but uses these elements of sex for in the narrative, basically. Okay. In Body Heat, we in fact, Body Heat, she's mentioning here that in Body Heat, Femme Fatale actually does not die. There is some confusion if she's dead, if Femme Fatale is eliminated, but because everybody thinks that she has died in boat explosion. Most of these Femme Fatale films from the past, 1940s in particular, and in 1970s were killing the femme fatales towards the end of the film because they had to be punished in that way that they should die. But Body Heat actually did not end the life of the femme fatale character, right? So these are films from 1990s. So we can see that some of these women were not really murdered towards the end of the film. So the death of the femme fatale wasn't essential by the time we were in 1990s, which is 50 years after the addition of this stereotype of fatal women in the cinema or in films, right? So in Body Heat, we find that though there is a lot of ambiguity around the female character, around Femme Fatale, that she has died in the boathouse explosion, we find her lying on the beach, which means that basically literalization of her childhood dream that she was lying on the beach. And again, it does say that Yvonne Tasker says that there is a lot of ambiguity around these characters, deception around these characters. So even if this character survives, it is pointing to the same elements which are essential to these characters. Deception, ambiguity, and ambiguity is there even till this last moment when she is considered dead, but then she is found lying on the beach. Who is next? Myra? Myra, are you there? I think she had joined for a little while, but she is not here right now. All right, so rest of the essay actually focuses on, like how work of women is presented in some of these films, because women are shown as working women, but many of those films do not show what kind of work they are, what kind of work they do or how they perform, right? So in some of the films actually show women as working women, but they are talking on phone for the duration of the work clips that are shown in the movie or included in the movie. So it's important that how the work is represented, because they are working women, but films do not show the greater side of the work in them. Most of these films emphasize on important family portraits. For example, if a bad woman has to appear as a monster within the film, they actually show that they get what they deserve. Karma is important, and as femme fatale are punished and they die towards the end, so they actually got what they deserved. Uh, in this particular film, Body of Evidence, and I said Madonna performed in Body of Evidence, we see a wife and a femme fatale. And as femme fatale dies towards the end of the film, her body is lying there on the beach, and the wife actually uh, uh, appears to patch up the partnership, which means that femme fatale got what she deserved. She played a role of powerful monster, heavily sexualized, but towards the end of the film she dies, and her corpse is lying there on the beach, and the wife crosses her body and joins her husband, which means the family is protected towards the end of the film. So these films are actually showing modern liberated urban culture. These films have women you know, so we see the stereotype of fatality within these characters, but one stereotype of bad woman replaces the other stereotype of femme fatale. Collision and reformation is emphasized as the wife joins back her husband. Domesticity is important, or rejection of domesticity is important. These women are denying conventional roles. Clute, she says, is the film. Yvonne Tasker says that Clute performs a role which has a double role. She is victim and also a predator within the film. So if you are showing two sides of a person as victim and predator at the same time, it means that there was still this new treatment in terms of femme fatale roles, right? So stereotype of fertility is presented differently by showing two sides of the Noah hero. Okay. Femme fatale in this film, because she has double kind of role. As a working girl, she loses some of the mystery and power. And I think that in Basic Instinct also, the femme fatale loses some sort of mystery and power because she is domesticated towards the end of the film, as she falls in love with the investigation officer. And you can see that this is in pursuance with horror roles or horror conventions. Most films actually are horror films or crime thrillers. I think one of you mentioned that if a foreign character will be considered fatal in many cases, so here it is just saying that some of the femme fatale films actually included vamps or fatal women who were not American, but they were still evil temptresses, and their exoticism was emphasized. So if that was a foreign woman, she would appear not only evil because she was sexually tempting the male protagonist within the film, but her exoticism was also emphasized. So anything, any character that is shown foreign is a stronger evil within the film. So The Lady from Shanghai 1948 film is an example, because this Rita Hayworth is presented as a fatal woman by an association with Shanghai, and she also has Cantonese background. So which means that there are more elements about her, about the ambiguity that surrounds the character. She's a foreigner, she's more ambiguous, she's unpredictable, indeterminate, etc., and all these signs make her very fatal and harmful for the male identity. These characters are sometimes read as, like prostitute is another stereotype. So there is some association between their identity and identity of prostitutes within such films. So here it says that that there is a contrast between characters and contrast between the dehumanizing experience of auditions with her pleasure and in the control she has as a prostitute. So Clute is, I think, is a character that is performing the role of the prostitute in the film, and Clute actually shows her dehumanizing experience or side, and as a prostitute she is in good control of it. So pleasure and control again make the character more powerful. Okay, so which means more and more dangerous. It says that in another film, The Lonely Street, the desire of the individual male subject and the cultural regime of masculine identification are complicated. And if the film narrative does not correspond with masculine identification, there would be a need to punish the female character. It means that if you are showing an independent woman, you are actually showing failure of male identity or problem of male identity in many of the films that will complicate the situation and become a reason for punishing the woman. In this particular film, we find, the character inside the car having this sexual relationship with the other character, and she winds up the side windshield of the car so that her image is replaced by his reflection, which means that he admires himself. So if a woman's image is replaced by the image of the male within the film, it means that female becomes weaker, and film actually shows the male as more powerful. So Femme Fatale films would actually keep on presenting women as dangerous. So destruction is important. In these two films, there are two films mentioned on this page. We don't have enough time left, so I think I would ask any of you, if you had read these pages, so I would suggest that you try discussing these pages during the discussion, right? If you try adding something to the discussion. Now, this film, Judicial Consent, actually shows women working as a judge. We would suppose that judges are very powerful because they are employed in powerful roles and they are making decisions about the cases of public at large. But the film actually shows that the judge is actually caught in a murder situation herself, because she is assigned a case. Like trials are assigned to different courts, and in courts you would find women as judges or men as judges. So in judicial consent, we actually find that the female judge is assigned a case, and during the jury or during the trial, she ends up in a situation where her own underwear is paraded in the court in a scene, and it was found near the body of the deceased, right? So the female judge is trapped in a situation where she has to fight, in a situation where she herself becomes looks like a culprit, right? So basically, sure, you have to look at situations that are shown or within the film. So how the work of woman is shown within the film. I said in some films, the working woman is only shown talking on a phone during, like when work scenes are included within the narrative of the film. And in this case, this looks like a better situation because she's shown as a judge, but she is caught in a situation where her own underwear is paraded as evidence of murder, because it is found besides the dead body. Okay. Why I am mentioning all these scenes and all these situations that are described here, I'm mentioning these because I want you to include descriptions of scenes in your midterm exam and descriptions of scenes in your final exam, right? You can see that this chapter by Yvonne Tasker, this chapter is including a number of descriptions of scenes from the film. Yvonne Tasker is not primarily focusing on summaries of film. She goes to specific scenes and says how those scenes present working women or fatal women, right? So just make sure that you are discussing in similar style. It's in this one it says that the film offers woman as both victim and villain in the twin figures of these are the two characters, Paul Hamas and Barbara Sabic, the betrayed wife who has murdered, orchestrating the scene in mimicry of violent rape and leaving traces of husband's semen. So actually the wife kills the person and leaves there her husband's semen, because a wife would normally, traces of her husband's semen maybe on some dress or some other artifact. So it would be easy for a wife to do so. So she actually involves her husband in a crime while she has committed the crime herself. So you can see that she appears as a victim in the film, but later she is proved as the murderess herself. So it means that there is a complication here, because you are talking about normality in terms of domesticity, but the woman is proved a murderer. So basically all these different films are showing how the narrative or the treatment of a femme fatale character was changing over a period of time from 1940s until the start of the new millennium, because some of the films are actually from the beginning of new millennium or from late 1990s. Okay. What page number is this? So just a few pages, you can say that she is trying to show her husband's infidelity, but there might be other films. I think this is another film where a husband is committing infidelity, but he accuses his wife of infidelity. So these are, like different films that reflect on different kind of narratives, and femme fatale is used as a device to create the narrative of the film. So femme fatale's power and energy is linked to sexuality. So working women, when you emphasize on their sexual aggression, it means that the value of the work will be reduced and woman will appear as evil or fatal. So if you succeed in reducing the value of work, it means that by punishing her, you are trying to reduce the threat that she imposes to the male protagonist within the film. All right. G, any questions about whatever we have discussed so far? Any questions or any comment? No question, no comment. All right. In the end, Yvonne Tasker is only concluding that women are dressed as they are glamorized. They are given stylized looks in many of the femme fatale films that actually offer a pastiche within the context of the narrative of seduction and betrayal. These films actually show aggressive sexuality and an ability of fatal women to manipulate men. These characters appear humiliating to the male power, and they demonstrate the danger. So their manipulative role has to be controlled, and this is why it's important to punish them or to death them by the end. They may appear very sophisticated in many cases, but in terms of work, I think we already discussed that whatever is discussed on these pages, that they are shown either talking on phones or not doing some very significant work. In some of femme fatale films, you would see that technology is very important. So in such cases, though sex as power appears meaningful, but it also appears meaningless as the narrative keeps on developing and changes. You learn that it was not all that important. So in this film Disclosure, you would see that technology is very important. You would see that workspace focuses on cyber work or cyberspaces, etc. And power is associated to being part of the system or being locked out of the system. And fertility is also focused around the changing narrative of new technologies. Right, so I think that by looking at all these different comments on different films, you can see that role of femme fatale is changing over a period of time. So new technology brought a change within the femme fatale narrative, and we can see that work of women is shown as perverse, even if they are presented as working women. So women's mobility or strength is reduced to fatality in most cases. G, any comment? Because I think I have covered all the points. I tries to summarize what is written on next pages, which is, the insecurity, work-wise insecurity that keeps appearing in most of the films. All right, thank you for being here today, and we have covered almost all the article. Please try uploading your midterm exam by the end of the week, Friday, maximum Sunday evening, because on Monday you are presenting your paper. Okay, thank you.